So we're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so talking a little bit about Resco Components. Now, the whole idea of this week is productivity unleashed, right? Moving productivity around. Let's talk a little bit about that productivity. Let's talk about productivity through the ages. Does anybody know what this is?
Washer.
A washer? Don't let that man near clothing. What else is this? Anybody else want to guess? Cotton machine? It's a cotton gin, which is designed to separate cotton. This was a huge productivity gain. This was a massive productivity gain in that it saved over 50 times the labor. If you had a cotton gin, you could gin more cotton in 1 hour than 50 humans could. It was huge. This led to the largest export in the United States being cotton. Okay, cotton was huge. And this machine made it very much possible. This machine was the personification, if you will, of productivity in the 1800s. What's this? No, that's not the lunch line. So, assembly line for Ford Model T, that's correct. Now, the assembly line for the Ford Model T, what made the assembly line interesting? That one
Mass manufacturing.
Mass manufacturing. One person stood in one place and did one job and became specialized in that one job over and over and over again. And they became the world's best at doing something. This manufacturing line that Ford had led to an 8x increase in productivity. They could take out a car in an hour and a half. Think about that for a second. A car. Have you guys ever ridden in a Model T? Yeah, they're pretty simple. But I couldn't imagine building that in an hour and a half, could you? No way in God's green earth. Heck, give me two 2x4s and I can't build anything in 4 days. Now, that didn't really, the productivity gains were actually shared with the consumer. If you think about this for a second, when Ford did the Model T production line, they were able to reduce the cost of a Model T from $850 to about $250. So the cost of the car went down. Why? Because productivity stayed up higher. Now, let me ask the question. Did Ford make less profit doing that? No. No. Ford still made a ton of money doing that. Let's think about this today. So these are kind of some ancient examples, 100 years old, I guess that's ancient. Where are we today? That's the modern day cotton gin today. Does anybody want to guess how much cotton that mill can gin in an hour? Any guesses? A lot? Okay, that was. How about what machine it is, between 12 and 60 bales. Each bale's weighing over 500 pounds. So do the math. Somewhere between 30 tons an hour of cotton that machine can bale. It's freaking amazing. Now, on the right here, has anybody ever been to an automobile factory? Who's been to an automobile factory? Okay. Which one? Jaguar Land. That's not a great example. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So you saw the BMW plant in Savannah and in South Carolina. Is that what I heard? Somebody over there. Yeah, you.
Chrysler plant. Assembly plant.
God, getting good examples?
The new S-Class factory in the north of Germany.
Okay, the new S-Class factory in the north of Germany?
The Skoda factory in France.
The Skoda factory? Isn't Skoda just a knockoff of a good Volkswagen? Oh, I know. My favorite tour I've been on so far, I've been through two of them. One's the Morgan factory, which, by the way, Morgan hand makes cars, so they're made one at a time. The other one I love seeing is have you ever been to the BMW factory in Munich? The 3 Series factory? Okay, we got one person who publicly admits to it. It's an amazing factory tour. What amazed me the most was the least amount of hands that touched the car. There was less than 5 people that actually touched that car during the production process. Everything else was done by robots. It takes building a car from pressing the metal to paint it and shoving out the door about 40 hours. So is it more than the hour and a half that it did? But the car actually comes on the assembly line in less than 40 minutes. And right now today, BMW makes about 85 3 Series an hour, okay, with 6 human beings. What's the rest of it doing? It's all 100% productivity by machines. So when we think about productivity, for me, productivity is more than just about pushing the machine out. It's about the systems around it. So I'm going to ask some age questions here, and this is not an age questionnaire, but has anybody ever used, my clicker doesn't like me today, there it goes, these things before? Somebody actually said yes the other day. Well, okay, we got one gentleman who said yes. You. What are these? Anybody ever used these before? Punch cards. Did you ever use punch cards before? Horrible, horrible, horrible programming. Because what happens if you screwed up?
Yeah, I know.
You don't want to talk about it, do you?
No.
Okay. The truth of the matter is, punch cards were highly skilled for their time. They were a huge dawn of innovation and productivity at the time. Now, this is before my time, but this is actually at my time. What's the first computer program somebody used? What's your first computer program? Go on. Nobody remember? Oregon Trail for anybody? WordPerfect? Oh. Fortran, okay. Basic. Lotus 123. Quattro Pro. Mine was this one. Anybody know what that is? It's a word processor called WordStar. It was the enemy of WordPerfect, so if you use WordPerfect, we can have words outside later if you want to. WordStar. What was the advantage of WordStar? Man, you could edit anything. What didn't it have though? Does anybody ever remember doing WordStar, WordPerfect back in the day? This is bold text. You know, Shift B, Shift I, Shift Y. My first thing I ever programmed, by the way, was a bunch of macros in WordStar. It was my first thing I actually programmed outside of BASIC. WordStar was huge. Could you imagine going back to this today, though? Could you imagine telling your kids, this is how you're gonna write a document today? How many of your kids would look at you like you had a third eyeball? Okay. How about this right here? Somebody said BASIC was the first thing they did. This ring any bells here? BASIC. What am I doing here in BASIC for those of you who are the nerds in the room? What am I doing in BASIC? I'm drawing 4 circles. So 47 lines of code for 4 circles. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask the question, was that productivity at the time? At the time, was that productive for you? Was that productive for, I'll tell you right now, WordStar saved my father. My father's an architect. And if you're an architect doing commercial buildings, you write these things called specifications books, which are these big, thick, ugly books that all the contractors are supposed to read about how to build the building that they never do. You can bust them for later. His job was to take those spec books and rewrite them every project he did. WordStar saved him thousands and thousands and thousands of days a year rewriting those spec books. Because he could keep them, recall them, edit them, and print them out again. So there's huge productivity gains there. Let's walk in a little more modern area here. Who here has run or runs their business on Excel? Hands up, no lying. Okay, thank you. You're right. Excel is the world's most popular what? Programming tool, database, business logic system, CRM system, data source for Power Apps. Oh, sorry, is that my outside voice? Sorry. Do you guys ever remember that thing called coronavirus that happened to us a couple years ago? We don't talk about that anymore? Okay, sorry. Remember what happened in the UK? The UK stopped tracking cases. Do you remember why they stopped tracking cases? They ran out of rows in their Excel database. True story, look it up. So you try that Excel. Who remembers this gem of a product? Oh, come on. Access. 97, by the way. Woohoo. Now, I was a FoxPro guy myself, but I love me some Access too, though, because they stole off FoxPro's good technology. But Access databases. How many Access databases are in the world today? Too many? I saw a customer the other day They had a 125 gigabyte access database running a mission critical system in their business. Should scare you a little bit, shouldn't it? Those things are around alive today. Now, let me ask you a question though. Was that a productivity gain? Have you ever used Access? Was that a productivity gain from using Excel? I would say, yeah, it was. Now, I know there's a few Microsoft people in the room, so I'm going to duck when I say this in here. Does anybody remember this gem? Visual Studio light switch. I think it lasted about 12 seconds. It was the first. It was actually kind of funny. I went to Microsoft had an internal event called Tech Ready. We went to Tech Ready, and I'm sitting there going, this looks like XRM, which was, well, XRM. Light switch is this thing Microsoft made that was an add-in for Visual Studio that made Visual Studio so that any business user could use it. Well, guess what? No business user has Visual Studio on their desktop. So when we think about productivity over the ages, from the cotton gin to the production line to even in IT here, even in technology, we've had some massive changes in productivity. And I would say low code, no code is one of those things that's actually making people more productive, more innovative. As a result, you guys have seen this stat before. If you haven't, it's a standard Microsoft stat. I've stolen it directly from them. God gave me eyes, so I plagiarized. No stealing my jokes, guys. 750 million apps need to be built. And about half the work we do can be digitized. What's that mean? It means there's half of the work. Think about this for a second. How many emails do you get every day that you could reply to with a thank you and never actually do anything else with it? It's information. How about not enough developers? We don't have enough developers. Most companies are struggling to hire talent. Who here is a hiring manager? Anybody here a hiring manager? Okay, hiring manager. Have you put a job on a job board? You look at the people replying, you're like, what in God's green earth is, what made them think that, like, I advertise for a developer and I get somebody who's done customer service in a department store with no development expertise. Companies are struggling to hire tech talent. So talent is there. It's not enough of it that can actually do deep technical and not enough that have development experience. Now, we talked a little bit about makers. I think we had a session here earlier today where we talked about the rise of the maker. Microsoft calls them citizen developers. You can call them makers. You can call them whatever you want. I don't care. But in my mind, I'm a bit of a knuckle dragger. I'm a pretty good maker. I can make a pretty decent drag and drop app. Ask me to write some code. Yeah, I'm kind of not your best friend. But if you want to be a maker, there are millions and millions of makers out there. We see them from customers, everything from, if you look at the Microsoft case studies, what do you see? People who had a job, they wanted to improve it, they found this app, they hacked on it, they built it. What are they now? In charge of low code, no code deployment at their company. How have things changed over time though? Anybody here been around CRM since the early days? I'm gonna pick on CRM because it was the old 1.2 CRM days. Okay, you got Rick over here, got 2, 3, got less than a half dozen of us. CRM 1.2 was easy. You could do a little bit of JavaScript. By a little bit of JavaScript, I mean a very little bit of JavaScript. You could build forms. And that was basically it. Like, if you want to be a maker on CRM 1.2, you had to have 2 skills. Can you write a little bit of JavaScript, and can you do some basic form building? Now, CRM 4.0 came out. Who here joined who's the OG 4.0 guys? Okay, a few more of those. What became part of 4.0? You could do forms building. You could do JavaScript. We had this thing called workflow. Remember the first time you ever saw the workflow builder in CRM? You're like, oh, this is cool. Oh, when a record's created, do this. Like, that was like, ooh. It was awesome because it got us out of writing code to do that. Our friend Fetch XML. Love me some Fetch XML. Okay? Web resources, the forgotten redheaded stepchild of the Power Apps world that they are. Plugins. Remember plugins got introduced? Like, ooh, we can write code and put it in the product and it can do things. This is awesome. And then they shipped this thing called SharePoint. We can integrate SharePoint into CRM. Ooh, I can have an opportunity with my documents right there behind it. This was actually, so could you be a functional consultant in 4.0? And you can do a pretty good job being functional with 4.0. Because really, plugins were the only thing that was kind of really, truly code. Web resources were kind of HTML, which I don't know, we can battle about HTML being code or not, and we can sort of fight over the bar later. But there wasn't a whole lot. Now, when we think about today's modern world, the world we're in today, we still have forms, we still have JavaScript, but how much JavaScript do we have now? A ton of it. Can you write JavaScript for anything? Yeah, JavaScript can go anywhere, do anything. We still have the workflow builder, may it rest in peace. Fetch XML is still there, web resource still there, plugins are still there. Has anybody ever used Liquid before? Other than Nick Nolan, you don't count. Liquid, Bootstrap, JSON, PCFs, Power Automate. Heck, Power Automate, world's most frustrating, easy to use tool, isn't it? You want to do something complicated? Piece of cake. You want to do something easy? Shit. Like for 4 hours. Teams, and now we have SharePoint. So think about this for a second. Over the last 20 years of Dynamics being out there, we have had a ton of skills that are required now by our teams to do it. What has that meant? To you, we actually don't have enough resources to do what we need to do. Now, we did a community survey. Does anybody remember the community survey we put out about 6 months or so ago? You guys all should have gotten it. If you didn't, shame on me. We put a survey out. We got hundreds of replies. We went through them. One of the questions that we asked was, are you a technical, a functional, a techno-functional, or in management, which means useless? I'm kidding. Which one of these 4 are you? Does anybody want to guess what the #1 response was? Any guesses? I'm going to pick on this side over here because what do you think what most popular response was from this survey? Functional, technical, techno-functional. Techno-functional. Techno-functional was the #1 reply. As a matter of fact, over 95% of consultants identified as being techno-functional. Pretty cool, huh? So then we asked one more follow-up question. Do you write plugins? Can you write a PCF? Or do you write JavaScript? Anyone want to guess what the reply was back from that? No. 10% of consultants could write a plugin or controls. So I would say that this 95% is a bit skewed. Would you agree with me? No, they're technical, don't get me wrong. But they're really good at taking functional requirements, turning them into technical documentation. But the amount of people who actually sit there and actually write code and do code on a regular basis is actually a minority of our partners, the minority of the resources in our partners. And so about 10% of the consultants out there actually can and do write plugins or controls. So the team here at Resco said, hey, what do we do next? How should we do this? What should we look at? So when we think about for us, what's really a component? And you're going to see some things today that is the start of the Resco Power Components. So when we think about what components are to us, there's really a couple things. A JavaScript library. Does anybody here at the company have a JavaScript library? Okay, I got 1, 2. Does anybody at their company have your own personal JavaScript library that you cart with you everywhere you've gone? I do. Okay. How about a plugin library? You got a plugin library? Okay. Number of partners who have plugin libraries that because they have the same plugin over and over and over again. It's huge. How about a PCF framework library? Anybody have a PCF framework you guys use all the time? How about Power Automate connectors? Do you have any Power Automate tricks and tips you use over and over and over again? So when we think about what components are, and the context is right here, you're going to see some PCF controls today. You're going to see Michal come up here and demo you some PCF controls and show you what we're working on today. But know that we're thinking about this in a broader context, which is how do we enable your functional consultants to do jobs that were previously only allowed for and done by technical consultants? How do we allow for configuration versus customization? How do we allow for you to build something in a dev environment, package it up, and ship it off to a customer, they put it in their environment, and you treat those components like code without writing any code itself. So when you look at what we're doing today, it's to enable the functional consultants, because what did we just learn from that previous slide? I'm going to just stop for a second. Is the 90% functional accurate for your business? I think it is. And if you look at, I've looked at all sorts of partners, all sorts of sizes, it's about there. Now, I'm going to get this question all the time. Hey, but Microsoft's got this community site. I'm just saying right now, the community site Microsoft has is awesome. I freaking love it. I think it's one of the best sites ever. They have a great gallery of PCF controls you can go look at, you can go download, you can go put in there. But what can't you do with those controls? What shouldn't you do with those controls? You can't run them as is, because they're generally built for one scenario that's just that one scenario you're looking at. Okay? There's no support. So if something breaks in that control, who do you go to for help? You can't go to anybody for help. It almost always requires refactoring. So there's a community site. We're not here to replace the community site. We're not here we're here to offer you an alternative that has support, that has configuration, that allows you to grow your business with functional consultants easier. So we love the community. And we're not going to replace this site. We're not going to try to replace this site. We're going to try to make sure these components you use here are put in a supported in a scalable manner that you can use. We love the open source components of it too. I mean, I think you talk to Tomasz, he'll tell you how much he loves open source. Just give him a few minutes and a beer or two, and he'll tell you about that. So we talked a little bit about why we're doing this, why productivity matters, why these Resco components are going to help your teams be more productive. Well, let me tell you how it's going to help you, though. We're going to help increase the productivity of your makers, of your functional consultants, of the people who make the apps in your company. These are going to make them much more productive. You're going to be able to build more with less. You're going to have less time writing code, more time configuring, which means you're going to have less development time. And most importantly, you're going to have a better user experience. So with that, you guys want to see these things, or are you done? Want to hear me talk for the next hour? Okay, talk? Okay. Show us the code, all right. So with that, Michal, you want to come up here and talk about the code and how we got here?
I still have time.
You still have time.
Yeah, but thank you, Ben. So yeah, the main topic is that we want to give more power for the Power Up makers. So that was the whole process started with the product narrative that we discussed with Ben at the beginning of this year, where we were thinking about how we can give more productivity tools for people who are building applications on the Power Platform, no matter if it's a Power Page or the model-driven application. And there was a simple idea that they will come with the PCF components that are like fully supported by the Resco with the whole history and experience that we have, that we can also deliver to the Power Platform within the components that are frequently used while building the applications on the Power Platform. And we started with like 3 main principles that we identified that we will keep in mind while building the components in the future. And I will speak about them a little bit before I will show you the components that we have in the first batch. The first one is that it's makers-driven development, that we are focused on the requests from you guys regarding the projects that you are building on the Power Platform. So we search what is requested on the forums, what is missing on the PCF gallery, and request the feedback from you guys to build the components that are requested and make sense for building the application in the Power Platform. Okay, second one is configurability. So there will be a huge flexibility of component that you can customize without coding, testing, and debugging. So that's the issue that we will struggle with, but you don't have to. And you need to more focus on configuring. So you can use our tools for making the components easy to work and fit to the use case that you want to in your application. And the third one is maintenance and long-term support. So we are not providing the open source component, but we are more concentrated on the components that are frequently updated, adding more features, and also the whole gallery of the solution will be updated on frequent basis with the available support. So if you struggle with some problems within the components, you can contact us because we are still available for helping you while using the components. So we take each component as a single product that you can use, adapt, and configure based on your needs. Okay, so what we achieved is the first version of the component, the first batch of the components that you can already test. It includes 5,000 hours that we already invested into the development. The speed up the process of the usage, so you don't have to spend days of the developing of the components. You can just upload them, install to your environment, and use it in a couple of minutes or even a few hours that you are able to use the component and then connect it with the database that you have. Okay, but before we started with the development of the PCF components, the controls, the code components, we created the whole environment to have the mechanism that we will be able to produce the amount of good quality components that are flexible and configurable. So we created like 3 main things. First one is a browser extension. I can provide more details if you want. These extensions help us to debug the components. So we are operating with the components directly within the browser, and you don't need to save the project, wait for a publishing, then check it and try it again. So we do it much more faster. There is automatic publishing process and building the components. So we have the automated pipelines to do the components much more faster. And we have micro tools to configure the PCF components, so you don't have to spend time on configuring or figuring out the JSONs or XMLs that are used for a configuration of the PCF components. So generally speaking, the approach that we have is most about the manufacturing and assembly link to create the components really fast, depending on the requests and requirements that you have in your projects. The current state is that we started this year with the first idea. We started to explore about the PCF components, requirements, and we created the whole infrastructure for the building of the PCF components. Now we have a first components that you can use and try, and the goal is to have the full first package of the PCF components at the end of this year, where there will be around 30 components. Okay, let's go through the components that you can use. This is like a first batch of components that are already available. I'm starting with the UI components. Firstly, the Kanban board that are really frequently used for the use cases like opportunity management. We are managing the sales pipeline, or task management, or priority or assignment management. So basically what you need to do is to bind the component to your database. It means the table and the view for the filtering. You should just bind also the labels on the cards to the existing data, color coding if you want, define the colors that will be used for the representation of the cards on the Kanban board, and that's it. So you're able to create your own Trello, Jira, or let's say simplified view of the cards directly on the Power Platform by using the Kanban chart. Also, we have already a couple of feature requirements that will be available in next release of the component. As I mentioned, we keep it as components that are frequently and updated and adding more features. So there will be the swim lines available. You will be able to customize the card, how it looks, add images, and customize the design and using the CSS that you would like to use for the Kanban board. Okay, another one is dates range picker. So it means that you would like to create the definition or create the business logic between two fields, from and to, you can just use one single component that represents these two fields in the database without defining the behavior of this or this logic between these two data fields. For example, you can define when is the start date. You can define if the weekends will be enabled or disabled. You can define, for example, if there are some specific dates that will be not able to select, and so on. So the use case is pretty simple. You can configure the behavior of two dates that you can define as a from and to within the one component on the form. As I mentioned, the parameters are, as usual, the binding of the data. So it's from and to field, format, weeks in the ISO definition, minimum or maximum days that are allowed to be selected in the range, disable weekends, or disable some specific dates that you would like to prevent for selection while a user is using the application. Okay, another one, UI component is a file upload. So there is a struggle with file uploading in a Power Platform. So in case you would like to define the logic, which files can be uploaded, what is the size, count of the files that you would like to upload, you can do it within the component that we created. So you basically add this component to the form. It will be automatically connected with annotation, which is a relation to the entity that you use for adding the component. And that's basically it. You can select the definition of the parameters that are, for example, the data binding for sure, the multi-upload that can be enabled or disabled. So if you like to allow users only to upload one single file, you can do it within this configuration. You can define the file types that you would like to allow users to upload. So you can define that it will only the pictures, only PDFs, or whatever else. And you can define also the maximum size of the attachment directly on the PCF component, so you don't need to care about the limitation in the database or the Dataverse. Feature requests that we already have is to define the thumbnails, also connection to the SharePoint, because currently it's only on the Dataverse. And actions after upload. So for example, there can be some automatic refresh if you're using the image gallery directly on the form. Now I'm switching to the components for manipulation with the image data or images in general and utilizing the AI. So there are like four or three editors or let's say image components that you can use. The first one is the image gallery that allows you to display the images directly on the form, connecting to the annotation on the Dataverse. So you're able to add this image gallery to the form. It will automatically connect with the annotation relation to the entity that you select. And you can define how it should display, enable, disable full screen mode, define the size of the thumbnails and other parameters that you would like to allow user to use within the image editor. The image editor is a part of the image gallery, so you're able to add additional text, arrows, symbols, and other images directly on the form, so you don't have to use a separated tool. So user is constantly using the same application and use all the features directly within the same form without leaving the application. And there is one more feature that is connected with the image gallery, that is image AI editor, where you can select the particular part of the image, write the prompt, and especially in this case, I request to remove letters from the image and it will be removed. So this is a image gallery and the image editor. The use case is pretty simple. You're able to manage the files, thumbnails, the preview of the documents directly on the form without need to managing it out of the application. Okay, another one is AI Translate. So basically you are able to translate the fields directly on the form without using a third-party application. So in case you would like to allow users to fill the data in whatever language you would like to use, you can just define the one button with the business logic behind using the AI translation. So in this case, I ask for a replacement of the CPU on the motherboard, and within hitting the one button, I'm able to translate the text directly to the Spanish language. Regarding the parameters, I'm able to define the field source and the field target where the data will be stored, the language that I would like to see as a result of the translation, and also the API key for the AI service. We have a couple of feature requests that will be also available in the next version. We are now playing with a global variable for the technical audience that we will be able to use the AI API key generally through the components. Also support of multiple languages based on the definition of some parameters on the form and translate on the save. Okay, there are another components, a couple more of them. I will just go through them pretty quickly. There is a multi-select drop-down list or hierarchy drop-down for a representation of the data that are hierarchy organized. So you're able to bind the components to the data that are organized or let's say connected between each other within the private keys and foreign keys. So it means that you are operating within the structuralized data through the one component. You're able to drill down, create the parent and also the child elements directly through the one component. There will be tree view and hierarchical dropdown also included in the package. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll have more components included in the first package. So there will be like 30 components at the end of this year, also based on your feedback and requests, depending on the requests from your customers, including. We have a couple of more of them in the backlog. It's a table view, scheduling and inspections, for the increasing the productivity, especially for the frontline workers regarding the scheduling their work, doing an inspection, and managing the data within the tables. Okay, the part of the package is, as was mentioned, the components that we have are in the same way we want to provide the behavior of the component and the way how you can configure the component, so you are able to use the same principles while using the components and adding them to the form. We have a complete documentation of the components, so you don't need to struggle with the try-catch approach to identify how the component will behave on the form. Continuous development, so adding new features to the components in the future, and also, as I mentioned, the support, so you don't have to fight with the bugs that you identify or the problems of the components that you will use. You can get your copy. So if you are interested in PCF components, or you're already using some of them, or you're not satisfied, or you're missing the components, or even if you already need some components and you outsource the development to the third-party company for developing, you can contact us. You can try the components that are already available on these websites. It's .resco.net/Power Components. You will find there all the components. You can download them and try them for free. And speaking about the price, we defined the first package with a pricing. But I think this is your idea, Ben, so you can cover it if you want. The hardest part?
I don't like you anymore.
I know.
Okay. So pricing for this is and would be a challenge. Why is pricing for these components a challenge? How do most software companies charge for their products? Per user per month, right? Pretty easy. You got per user per month. Now let me ask you a question. As an ISV, how should Resco think about charging you as a partner? Per user per month doesn't work. Why? What's the list price of a Microsoft Premium Power App license, roughly? 20 bucks? Okay. What's the price of the per app plan that kind of they've hidden off on the side that's tucked in the corner that nobody, $5? Okay. So let me ask this question. $5 is the premium. How do we offer you something that you can sell for $2 or $3 a user and make any money on it? Sometimes we can't. So what do? We look at a different pricing model. So what we've done with Resco's, I'll just be honest with you. We've gone back to our roots, Michal. If you look at the roots that Andrew showed earlier, how does component manufacturers, how does the Sync Fusions, the Telerik charge for things? Per developer, per year. So what we did with Resco was we made something interesting here. This is a per maker license for partners, which means that if you have 15 consultants doing work, you're going to pay this times 15. You have 25 consultants doing this, you're going to pay this times 25. And you can deploy this on all of your customer locations without any additional royalties or licensing back to Resco. So for those of you who haven't figured that out yet, this is a freaking awesome deal for you guys. Like, this is an amazing way of helping make your makers be more productive. I'm going to pause. Does that make sense, or did I do a little bit too much cocaine before I came up to the stage? Just kidding, I didn't do the cocaine. This is all natural high. But this is really what's going to make this a valuable thing for your team, is that there shouldn't be any thought process around, do I use these components, do I not use these components? How many times, let me ask this question by show of hands, how many times have you ever built the wrong solution for a customer because they didn't want to spend $10 licensing something from a third party? Come on, hands high and proud. I got one here that's actually admitting to it. You all know you've done it. So this way here, it becomes something you defaults for every one of the customer projects you do. So yes, is this a weird idea? Yes. Is this a different pricing model? Yes. But is this a way to help make it so that you don't have to think about, do I use this in this customer, not use this in this customer? And this allows you to make micro vertical solutions, because these managed solutions can be bundled up with your managed solutions, which is going to be shipped off to customers and then bound automatically.
Yeah, I can cover this. Well, regarding the pricing, as Ben mentioned, we decided to provide the first batch of components until the end of the year for free for all of you guys on the website that I already mentioned there. You can find the form there where you can just fill the form. And with the code NEXT 2024, you're able to download it and use it until the end of the year for free, and give us a feedback and requests regarding the components that you are missing or already struggling with. If you have any questions and something will pop up in your mind regarding the components, we have this separate address for just requests regarding the components, so feel free to contact us here.